We have to understand where words and conditioning come from. Toxic masculinity has an entire agenda behind it, just like the word progressive has behind it, just like the word feminine has behind it. Any ism has a belief system that comes from that structure. But if we're using these terms because we don't know how to question them, then we're losing.
I was speaking about abandonment, and I remember feeling very lonely. And grandma was like, "Well, he coming back tomorrow." Like I wasn't abandoned. I was lonely. And then I found something to do. I found a whole lot of stuff to do. So I created a life for myself, and I know how to entertain myself pretty well. So I just filled my life with things that I love to do that I didn't have time to do. Chasing 4 little girls around. So I'm like, I can use this time to create art and come up with different looks and, visit friends and create content. So yeah, just not looking busy, but being productive mattered a lot. I know that was long, y'all, but it's not a black and white answer.
All right, yes, there's a question. Well, there's a few different questions. So I'm going to jump to this question. I'm just scrolling through them online right now. Going back and forth. Again, if you want to try to ask questions live, follow us on Clubhouse, and Coach Nyla is facilitating there. So, Abu Bakr, says, in my place, talking about polygyny itself is not encouraged. Even the scholars of fiqh behave that way. How can we as individuals make any difference when the imams itself behave like this? That's a really good question. Last week, I actually addressed this on the Q&A I did. All right, because here's the thing. Here's some facts. If you are a person who wants to practice polygyny, if you are a person that follows any scripture, doesn't really matter which scripture it is. I mean, again, we used to be Christian, now we are Muslims, but every single scripture deals with polygyny. Matter of fact, when I was Christian, I was raised in Christian school. I used to go to parochial school every single day, study the catechism, even though it wasn't Catholic, I was a Lutheran. But they considered Prophet Solomon, or Suleiman, alayhi salam, the wisest man that ever lived. All right, King David's son, Prophet David's son, Dawood. And Solomon, and if you look in Song of Solomon in the Bible and so on, he has 700 wives, 300 concubines. So I thought about that when I was younger, and I was going to school, and I asked the pastor about that, and he didn't have an answer for me. But I thought, you know what? You probably have to be extremely wise to have 700 wives. All right. So not just that, or you have Prophet Ibrahim, whose first son was Ismail, alayhi salam, Prophet Ishmael. He had multiple wives. Prophet Moses had multiple wives. Every single prophet, with the exception of Prophet Jesus that we know of, had multiple wives. So even if you look at Prophet Ibrahim's grandson, you have Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or Ishaq and Yaqub. He had 4 wives, from which came the 12 sons, or these 12 tribes, from Prophet Joseph or Prophet Yusuf. This is something that's very common. So the reason I say that is just kind of lay the background, because now in Islam, the final revelation, Allah Ta'ala reveals in the Quran to marry 2, 3, or 4. And if you fear that you are unable to be just or fair, then just one. It's clear. Islam restricted it to 4 simultaneous wives in polygyny. And then the Prophet ﷺ was the example of how to live and how to do it. So again, it's in all scriptures. With that being said, my warning, and my name means warning, actually. Nazir means the warner. And that was one of the nicknames of the Prophet ﷺ. So my warning to the scholars, the imams, the pastors, the ministers, the rabbis, the individuals who don't talk about this, are you willing to accept your share in the destruction of the family that is going on? We as Muslims already know Shaitan's number one deed is to destroy the family, break up the family. So how much so is that also the case when you have people that want to get married, that is a moral way, that is talked about in scripture, that is given plenty of detail for people who can be fair and just, but you don't even talk about it, or you won't even marry it because you're scared of some other law? Like, we know what is lawful. Does not matter what is legal. There are no anti-polygyny laws in the US, for example. It's not legislated or legalized in any way. Now, I mean, just as slavery was legal and alcohol was legal, then there's a prohibition. And now, cannabis or weed is legal. That really doesn't matter. That doesn't change our position as Muslims on what the Sharia says. So if we know that that's Shaitan's number one deed is to break up the family, and we know that we need more nuclear families, meaning a human male, man, and a woman to reproduce and to continue going on, and you have bigger, stronger families when it comes to polygyny, then what's the problem? The problem is something internal. Are you willing to take that share of the hellfire to cause the pain? If there's sisters that don't know how to deal with things, their brothers, myself, didn't know initially how to deal with things. So outstanding personal relationships, what we're doing now was born out of the fact that there's no resources. There's very small lack of resources. Some people may talk about it. They may joke about it. But the fact of the matter is either we believe that we are unfair, unjust men, and the wives of these individuals are absolutely okay with that. That's weakness. That is not strength. That is not power and courage and bravery at all. A whole bunch of men walking around with low self-esteem, with lack of agency, figuring that they can't marry more than one to build strong families. All right. Are you scared of the women? You know what I'm saying? We are the protectors and maintainers of the women. And the Prophet ﷺ is the best example of this. So with that being said, and only very few even practice it anyway, but in the society that we live in, you don't have to marry another person to have sex. So when it's diminished, it's just a sexual, lustful thing. And even if it was, that's the lawful way to do it. But you think you want to take on marriage and responsibility and family and taking care and all this extra stuff for sex? It's 24 hours in a day. How many hours a day you having sex? Exactly. Point made, right? But when you build family structure and you're talking legacy, then you're talking that. Now, again, we're not anti-monogamy. We're simply pro-morals. But dear Imam, Sheikh, Alim, pastor, minister, reverend, rabbi, you know that this is there. Do you believe in half the book and not the other? You only want to talk about parts of it, but then hide other parts of it? Are there other things that are more important to you? Are there other more important things that you worship or get in front of? That's the warning. How do you make that more clear in the question where it talks about how do we make any difference? We vocalize that. It could have been just easy for us to get on a good plane, practice polygyny, and be quiet. And most successful polygynous couples are usually quiet because it's really nobody else's business. So we had to wait whether or not to be public, let other people know, and provide something for them and get the blessings because people are experiencing pain right now because the leaders of the religious communities are not putting it out there on how to do it in an equitable way, in a practical fashion. So are you willing to accept that heavy weight of being answerable to your Lord on the day it matters most? That's what I say. Raise more awareness about it. Show them this part of this video.
Being vocal takes courage. So we have to have the courage to do that. Now, one thing that I'll say, and this is a trigger warning to anybody that suffered any kind of abuse. If you have, I'm giving you, an opportunity to leave this portion of what I'm about to say. What angers me is that we don't have platforms to speak about polygyny. And like Coach Nazir said, the people are hiding. It's safer that way. They don't have to deal with the judgment. However, this was on IG. I'm not making that up. I'm not that good. This man was on there. And I'm like, what is he doing? And it said something about pedophilia. I said, okay. It said virtuous pedophile.com or something like that. These idiots have a .com to protect the virtuous pedophile. Now, you might ask what that means.
Ain't no such thing.
That means that they have not acted on their desire to molest young children. He said as young as 3. He said, that's what makes me virtuous. But the government protects that handle, protects that domain name, because there's freedom of speech and you can say what you want. And as long as I don't touch nobody. So they said, well, how young do you desire? He said 3. Virtuous pedophile. But as soon as you say something about polygyny, everybody has a fire in their belly that don't support it. But then you have the government protecting these people or these animals talking about virtuous pedophiles. So there's no justice for the women, but there's justice for these people that think these heinous things about children. It's all
right, Coach Nyla, you have something else?
Yeah, subhanAllah.
Hmm.
I'm going to go to Mustafa because he had a question, and Maliki, I'm going to go to you, Maliki.
I kind of wanted to say in the beginning stages, Coach says that women are auditory creatures and men are visual. So in the beginning stages, when you're trying to see if a man is qualified, I mean, how does a woman like that discern game from like what's real?
You know, the best way, and especially in Islam, we tell people, hey, have a wali or a wakil. It is not always easy because just how polygyny is, either shunned some ways, or you having some issues with it, or society have issues with it. But definitely, that's kind of the real about it, of having that person or people that are looking into your best interest, that have your best interest in mind, and being able to consult. Sometimes as women, we can be rebellious and we want what we want. So it'd be, well, I think this is good for me and it sounds good and it sounds great. No matter, you can have 50 million people telling you that don't do it, girl, it's wrong. And you do it anyway because you want to see for yourself and then find out that they were right. So with life, you pretty much take, the look for it. If you're going to really be sincere about having this amazing or outstanding marriage or relationship, the people who've been there, done that, and also people who may know, the brother or whoever you are looking to marry, so you can find out more insight. Because yes, of course, I totally agree with Coach Nyla when he talks about women are seduced by their ears. I've heard in love or things. Think about the love songs and everything like that that's been played. We enjoy that stuff. We have this big, great fantasy of this is what it's going to look like. So being able to have people that really have your back and have your best interest in mind is one of the best things. Also being humble enough to listen to the advice, but also be wise enough to say, you know what, I still may have to go and do what I need to do for me and then figure it out that way. But if it doesn't come out that way, we make our own decisions, and we need to make sure that we are being responsible for the decisions that we make. Inshallah, that helped.
Thank you for your insight. Appreciate it.
All right, there's another question online. Let me go ahead and go to it. All right, it says, recently, we can see a lot of feminine men on YouTube like James Charles, and also the rise of a lot of the new gender types from the LGBTQ plus communities. What is your comment about it? Men become more masculine with polygyny, I think. All right, so rise of a lot of new gender types. One, the fact of the matter is, I saw a meme, and it answered it the best way I know how. So, there's two genders. In gender, I don't even like gender. Let's say sex. Let's say what it is, all right? If you want to stick to science and stick with what's real, there's male and there's female. There's nothing else, all right? You can't change your DNA no matter what surgery or anything else. So the fact of the matter is, there's an entire agenda to destroy the family. Again, we know if Shaitan's number one thing is to destroy the family, then we must change what a family looks like. All right. So when I had the argument about gay things back in the day, I didn't like to argue from a religious perspective. Even though I was Christian at the time, I didn't like to argue it from a religious perspective, because you have to believe in this book and believe in this, and people have different beliefs and fairy tales and all kinds of stuff they go on. So I would say simply, listen, let's use this broad brush. If everybody does this, then what will happen? So I said, okay, let's say everybody gets married, male and woman, man and woman get married, they have children. Okay, cool. Our species still exists. Let's use that language. So let's say everybody practices homosexuality. End of humanity in one generation. It's done. It's over. It's a wrap. So guess what? I can look at it from a logical perspective and say, you know what? That's actually wrong. It's self-destructive. That was the end of my argument. Okay? So if the family is to be destroyed because there are those who are pretty much benefiting from that, it's the lack of thinking. Sadly, when you talk to people in America, we don't know anything, or the United States, we hardly know anything outside of the United States. when it comes to understanding about what currency is or money is and why it was taken out of schools after the Rockefellers made the Gender Education Board in the early 1900s, or understanding that our entire school system was based upon the Prussian educational system. If you don't know the history of that type of stuff, or if you're living right now in 2021 and you haven't read the new Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, there's very few things that we can really talk about on an intellectual level, let alone genders. But the meme said, it said there's 2 genders and there's 32 different types of gay. And I was like, yeah, spot on, target. I mean, it is what it is. Well, masculinity is really described as characteristics or attributes that are normally associated with men. Now, we all have these different types of characteristics. So I have a masculine side, I have this feminine side, just like I have testosterone and estrogen. Similarly, Coach Nyla, Coach Fatimah, every human have it. We come from each other. Okay, the difference goes in with what they want to put out there. They want to make me a woman with a penis. I have to do certain things and talk a certain way and not be aggressive and be real. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. See, with aggression is needed. Why is aggression needed? Because there are some things called war and fighting for and standing on principles and making moves and moving forward, right? All right, we need that at the proper time, not the wrong time, nor do you need it with the wrong people. But there's a place for it. So when people say, I'm anti-violent, how are you going to be anti-violent? The weather is violent as ever. You're not anti-weather. Violence is normal. You like hamburgers and, hot dogs and stuff like that. Well, somebody got to die for you to do that. You know what I'm saying? So I'm neutral. Violence is neutral. You come in your home and somebody's raping and pillaging, trying to kill your family. You're going to tell me you're against violence in order to protect them? No, and I'm just using that as an example. Violence is neutral. It depends on how things are used. Human beings, males and females, we're not neutral. I referenced a study in the talk the other day on Clubhouse when there was they wanted to test this whole gender identity thing and whether or not it's only a social construct like people say. Well, they had a bunch of different boys and girls and stuff like that. And parents evaluated them and they didn't treat them any different. As a matter of fact, they intentionally got them different types of toys. So they got the girl a bunch of trucks, got the boy a bunch of dolls and everything like that. And upon their observation, I don't remember which parent or both parents came into the room with the daughter and they saw that the trucks were lined up against the wall with blankets on them. And they asked asked their daughter, what's going on with the trucks? She was like, shh, they're sleeping. Treating them like dolls, like a girl does, right? There's nurturing part that's stronger in her than the other side. Then what was the boy doing with the dolls? We already know what he was doing with the dolls. He was jumping them off the top ropes, fighting them, and all kind of fights and everything, and doing all kind of rambunctious things. If you want to see pure masculinity and femininity, then look at babies, look at children. You see the more aggressive one, the more reserved one. That doesn't mean a girl can't be aggressive or be what's considered a tomboy. She has it in her. But the fact of the matter is, once we start to just make it as though we are the same, we're not the same. We aren't. That doesn't mean one is better than the other. That just means we're not the same. We complement each other. We absolutely need each other. But if we don't know that there's a war on the family, then we're losing. So I don't apologize for masculinity, nor do I use the word or believe there's such a thing as toxic masculinity. We have to understand where words and conditioning come from. Toxic masculinity has an entire agenda behind it, just like the word progressive has behind it, just like the word feminine has behind it. Any ism has a belief system that comes from that structure. But if we're using these terms because we don't know how to question them, then we're losing. You know what I'm saying? I'm raising young men. Okay, that means I want to work on them with courage and bravery and standing on their own and understanding what that means as a man. But at the same time, being vulnerable enough for your family, being open and honest for your family. That's not for the whole world. That's for your loved ones. And when you look at it, factually speaking, I was just doing some personal development. He was breaking down, people worry about what other people think so much, especially with polygyny. He said, fact of the matter is 85% of the people that you think about are thinking about you. One, they aren't even thinking about you. The person we think about more than anything else is ourselves, just like them. But it's 85% of people aren't even in your life. These are people that are around your life, whether it's in a masjid or a religious organization or friends or fraternity or sorority on the job. They're around your life. They're not in your life. Then there's about 10% of the people that care about you. They may be well-meaning, all right, but they want to discourage something because sometimes light is on them as well. But the people that you care about and the love that you desire from is about 5%. And these 5% you should listen to. That doesn't mean you have to take their advice. But these people actually care about you, and that's family. I understood the difference between family and relatives after reading about Prophet Noah. But hope that answers your question. Not going to get into a big old training about it. You can check tomorrow's blog about some things. All right, Coach Nyla.
Alhamdulillah. All right. Assalamu alaikum, Maya. You have a question?
Hi, Nyla.
30 seconds.
I have a question, and it is a question that I've also heard by other sisters. It seems like it's really difficult for a lot of good sisters to find a polygynous man, meaning a man that's actually worthy of it, meaning he's a leader. Do you have any advice in that area?
On how to find a man that is worthy of practicing?
100%. Yeah.
I mean, they're out there, but it's just like you said, finding them, sister.
And
them wanting to do it and being able to be the man for the job. It's not easy because we have daughters that want it, and we've been looking, and Coach Nazir has been more so than me, but it is difficult. And I think it's difficult because the men that are doing it the right way hide because they don't have support. So it's safer to be silent or to be secret about polygyny because, again, it's that judgment thing. I know in our communities, if we talked about it more, if the leadership spoke about it more, like we were talking about earlier, then the men would be offering themselves into polygyny. We wouldn't have to find them. So we have to start holding the ones that are trying to stuff it under the rug accountable. And again, like Coach Nazir was saying, be more vocal about that. Have more in our local masjids and things like that. I can't remember the last time that I heard a Muslim that was in a leadership position in the city that I live in even speak about polygyny. And some of them are in polygyny. Some of the men practice polygyny, but they won't speak about it. They won't give a khutbah about it. They won't give a talk about it. They won't hold an event at the masjid.
Prostitutes and all that.
Right. But you see what I'm saying? So it is difficult because you're going, okay, well, where do I look then? And you go, they are out there, but it's locating them. But they've been so shunned and ostracized, and then they don't have no brother. Even if you go to the masjid where we're from, some of them, they won't even practice a polygynous marriage. Perform a nikah. Oh, brother, I don't want to deal, and I can't be in it. Oh, go over here and do it, and maybe you should just do it in your house.
And we're not matchmakers. Here's the challenge.
We're not.
We know some people. We know some brothers that are interested, and they're pretty good brothers. And then we also know some sisters who are interested, right? But it's difficult to be a matchmaker because you don't know what's going on behind the scenes like that. So I would just suggest to have your wali or your wakil be on the lookout for it, because men talk about polygyny. It's not like a hidden subject. He may not talk about it around his wife, or if he's not ready and stuff like that, he'd be like, no, baby, it's just, I only have eyes for you. I'm not thinking about polygyny. He's thinking about polygyny all the way. He's asking questions and wanting to know more details. But the challenge is when there are lack of educational resources and support, it's very difficult to find them, because now you're asking this man to come out of his comfort zone. All right, and be made available. And then at the same time, you have somebody that's equipped, that may be equipped, but now he's feeling he's not fair, or it's just easier for him to cheat or have other stuff going on the side. So that's a really difficult question. Yeah. And Coach Nyla, I don't know if you want to chime in on that or you want to move on. Here are 3 ways outstanding personal relationships can help you.
One is by following us on our social medias. Follow us on IG at Outstanding Relationships, and on Facebook and YouTube at Outstanding Personal Relationships. And make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell.
Number 2, make sure you head over to outstandingpersonalrelationships.com and subscribe to the email list. From there, you will get downloads as well as updates, any and all updates. And you also get an update on the release of our new book, Let's Talk Polygyny, Uncensored.
Number 3, if you are serious about polygyny relationships and really developing fulfillment and happiness, make sure you register for our Relationship Mastery Inner Circle, which is members only, which includes downloads. It includes
access to us live on a weekly basis. So that's at outstandingpersonalrelationships.com/RM. We'll see you soon. Assalamu alaikum.
Peace.